Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namacharya Shaharidas Thakur ki jai. Prem se Kapo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gopakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Sai Mukunda Radha Kunda Kira Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Dham Mayapur Dham ki jai. Tulsi Bhakti Dev ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Anutta Kota Vaishnava Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Radha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th, first canto, chapter 7. The son of Drona punished, and we're 15 and 16. Takes 15. First canto, chapter 7, takes 15. Mata Shishushanam Nidam Satanam Nisyamya Goram Harita Aiman Adhuda Vaspa Kavakulakshi Am Santavyanya Ha Hitamali. Satanam Nisyamya Goram Haritapya Manam Adhuda Vasapa Alakunasha. Nam Satvayanya Ahakirtyamali. Anyone online like to chant?
Okay, I'll chant. Matash Pranam Nidanam Sutanam Shamya Goram Parita Payamana Tadarudat Vaspa Kalakulaksi Tam Santavanam Aha Kirita Mali.
Nam Nidanam Sutanam Nishmaya Goram Pratipayamana Tadarudat Vaspa Kalpulaski Tam Santavayam Aha Kiritamali.
Nidanam, massacre. Sudanam, of the sons. Nishyamya, after hearing. Goram, ghastly. Paritapayamana, lamenting. Tada, at that time, Arudat began to cry. Kashyapa Kala Akala Akshi. With tears in the eyes. Tama, heard. Satvilayam, pacifying. Aha, said. Kirtimali, Arjuna. Draupadi, the mother of the 5 children of the Pandavas, after hearing of the massacre of her sons, began to cry in distress with eyes full of tears. Trying to pacify her in her great loss, Arjuna spoke to her thus. And repeat, in Draupadi, the mother of the 5 children of the Pandavas, after hearing of the massacre of her sons, began to cry in distress with eyes full of tears. Trying to pacify her in her great loss, Arjuna spoke to her thus. Okay, that's the next verse. I'm just going to read the English translation. O gentle lady, when I present you with the head of that Brahmana, after beheading him with arrows from my mandible, I shall then wipe the tears from your eyes and pacify you. Then after burning your sons' bodies, you can take your bath standing on his head. We can repeat. O gentle lady, when I present you with the head of that Brahmana, after beheading him with arrows from my mandible bow, I shall then wipe the tears from your eyes and pacify you. Then after burning your sons' bodies, you can take your bath standing on his head. Fire to the house, administers poison, attacks all of a sudden with deadly weapons, plunders wealth or usurps agricultural fields, or entices one's wife is called an aggressor. Such an aggressor, though he be a Brahmana or a so-called son of a Brahmana, has to be punished in all circumstances. When Arjuna promised to behead the aggressor named Asvatthama, he knew well that Asvatthama was the son of a Brahmana. But because the so-called Brahmana acted like a butcher, he was taken as such, and there was no question of sin in killing such a Brahmana's son who proved to be a villain. Draupadi, the mother of the 5 children of the Pandavas, after hearing of the massacre of her sons, began to cry in distress, eyes full of tears. Trying to pacify her in her great loss, Arjuna spoke to her thus, O gentle lady, when I present you with the head of that Brahmana, after beheading him with arrows from my mandible bow, I shall then wipe the tears from your eyes and pacify you. Then after burning your sons' bodies, you can take your bath standing on the stake. Warriors of both camps, namely the Kauravas and Pandavas, were killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and the dead warriors obtained their stern destinations. And when the son of Dhritarashtra fell down lamenting, his spine broken, being beaten by the club of Vishvasena, the son of Dronacharya, Asvatthama, beheaded the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi. and delivered them as a prize to his master, foolishly thinking that he would be pleased. Zeribon, however, disapproved of the heinous act, was not pleased in the least. So here we are hearing the background of the speaking of the Bhagavatam before Maharaj Parikshit. So these activities which have just been described, how Asvatthama killed the snake, and how Arjuna reacted to this situation. In the beginning of the purport, Prabhupada describes what an aggressor, or who is an aggressor, and that there's no sin created in killing such an aggressor. Finding some difficulty with this, because even though the act was very unforgivable, not only were the sons killed in heinous way, late in the battle of Kurukshetra, but the person who had done the killing was expecting some praise, thinking that he had accomplished something very great. To kill an enemy is something, but to kill that enemy while that enemy is asleep is not such a wonderful thing, because those persons cannot defend themselves. Plus the fact that these were not yet grown boys, they were still young children. I'm having difficulty with it, mainly because the idea of killing other living entities, we have been told many times in the Shastra that to kill another living entity is very sinful. Here it is indicating that when the crime is very horrendous, the means of punishment of that crime should also be horrendous. And so Arjuna was going to cut off his head using his Gandiva bow. So this process of taking one life because other lives were taken, sometimes in Krishna consciousness, some things do not appear to be straightforward. What is Krishna consciousness? If one's consciousness is not redirected towards the remembrance of Krishna, the purpose of human life is to depart from this material world, go back to Godhead. If one cannot accomplish that, that lifetime that one has spent is wasted. So here there are 5 young boys who don't even have the chance to grow to manhood. They are killed. Their lives are taken away. So this other person, this son of a Brahman, this Asavatama, the son of Dronacharya, he has, even though born in a Brahmin family, has indicated that he does not understand the Vedic process. We have to remember that during the Battle of Kurukshetra, war was fought in a different way than it is now done in Kali Yuga. During the day, persons of equal ability met each other on the battlefield to test their prowess, to see who was the greater of the two. And in the evening, after the battle was over and they had cleansed themselves of the dust of the field, the two opponents would sit and talk about other affairs, like old friends. Of course, in Kali Yuga, this doesn't happen, and war goes on during daytime or nighttime. There's no stopping at any time, although I seem to remember reading about during the First World War. When it came to be Christmas, the two warring sides put down their arms and met each other in the middle of the battlefield and celebrate Christmas. And they went back to their trenches and started fighting again. So there was some semblance of order, of respect for each other's faith. But with Asatama, there was none of this respect there. In Krishna consciousness, there are various difficulties that we come up against as individuals. And we are, or I'm presuming that many of us are thinking that, hey, I'm a devotee now. My karmic slate has been wiped clean. I no longer am going to suffer for pious or impious activities in the past. But this is not so. Sure, it may be minimized by the grace of Krishna. We have to remember, any activity that goes on is due to the grace of Krishna. And so we are going through our days and we're feeling some happiness, some distress. But because we're in the material world, we're experiencing largely distress in various different forms. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, that if we are engaged in focusing our minds on Krishna, after all, that's what we're supposed to be doing. If I can focus my mind on Krishna and engage in some devotion for his pleasure, then if you are executing everything in the proper way, there will be very little distress. You'll feel some happiness, some relief from anxiety. And if you are following the principles properly, you're not following the regulative principles, if you're not chanting prescribed number of attentive rounds, if you're attending rising early, bathing, putting on clean Vaishnava clothing, coming to the temple, greeting the deity in the morning at Mangalarti, observing the worship of Tulsi Devi and Guru Puja, and hearing from the Bhagavatam in the association of other devotees. If you are doing these things on a regular daily basis, that anxiety will dissipate. Because you're properly engaged in Krishna consciousness. Because if you're doing these activities, it becomes very difficult not to remember Krishna. I remember when I first was living in the temple, I was given a godmother to be my acharya, my example. I was told to go with him, and whatever he did, help him do it. And, so this meant when it was time for taking rest, he would lie down to take rest, and I would lie down next to him to take rest. When I got up in the morning, he was getting up. When I was going to the shower, he was going to the shower. When he went on Sankirtan, I went on Sankirtan. Of course, we can't do everything together, but, by that imitation, I was learning how to fix my mind on Krishna throughout the day in various activities. So it was sort of like an immersion course. Just like I know here in the city of Vancouver, there's French immersion school, where all the directions in the school are given in French. All the directions you receive in school are in French. When you go out to play in the playground with the other children, you are speaking in French. In the same way, in all of our activities in the day, we are thinking of Krishna, remembering Krishna, coming before Krishna and asking, what would you have me do today, my Lord? Because that's what you're supposed to do when the curtains open. What may I do to please you, my Lord? And if someone comes to you, makes a request to do some kind of seva, you should, even if the seva that's been asked, maybe you're not attracted to it, you do the seva anyway. Just like I had one godbrother, Gargamuni. All the devotees would bow down when Prabhupada came in a room, but Gargamuni couldn't do this. He said he couldn't bow down to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, it's okay. You just bow down anyway. Even if the feeling is not there, you bow down. And when you bow down, you think of what you've received from the spiritual master. And after a time, he came to realize why he was bowing down. And then he easily bowed down. He didn't have difficulty. Because he could understand that if one is grateful, one way of showing this gratitude is by offering this respect, bowing down. You have to remember he comes from a society where I don't bow down to anyone. This is the general opinion, or was the general opinion at the time. I am great. I don't bow down to anybody. So when we come to Krishna consciousness, we have to change our outlook on things. We need to study these books Prabhupada has translated, read them on a daily basis, and try to understand what is being said there. It's not just good to read, but try to understand what is being said. And you can understand what is being said by trying to put into practice what that particular verse or that particular sentence in the purport means to you. This discussion here is the beginning of kata, which is in relationship to Krishna and his associates. Someone is speaking about the activities of Krishna. The other form of kata is when Krishna is speaking, as in the Bhagavad Gita. But this is the Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam is written in these, 18,000 verses, that all the activities of Krishna and how those activities are instructions to the individual living entities on how to return to Krishna. Examples are given of different entities under different situations, different circumstances, in different times, in different places. And by hearing these recitations and accepting those as reality, not some mystical understanding, by hearing these katas, this killing of Drona's son, or killing by Drona's son, of the sleeping sons of Draupadi, we could come to some understanding of conditions at the time of his speaking, and how one relates this to Krishna. I'm mentioning these different things because I have noticed that many come and they engage in activities, not really thinking much about their activities, not understanding the difference between ordinary mundane activities and bhakti activities. Just what does bhakti mean? Bhakti means devotion to Krishna. You're not doing this because you're going to be happy by this activity. Excuse me. You're doing these activities to please Krishna. This is what makes them bhakti. Because you're doing it out of some wish to please. You're doing it out of some desire to please someone else. In this case, Krishna. I don't think it's going to do any good. change one's consciousness away from the material body to practically understand what is meant. I am not this material body. I am spirit soul. This is the first instruction that is given in Bhagavad Gita. I am spirit soul. What does this mean? It means that the physical form that I am appearing with or within is not me. I am the spirit soul that is the activating principle in this form. And I am Nitai Swarupushpadas. Full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. If I understand that I am this Satchitananda, then there will be no distress because you will understand that I'm not this material body. You will understand that Krishna is in charge of everything. I have nothing to fear. There is nothing in this world that can happen to me that Krishna cannot change, or whatever is happening to me is due to Krishna's desire. And the only way that desire can be changed is that if I act in such a way as to forget Krishna. We are interested in Krishna consciousness to fill our day with Krishna. This means if we are working in the association of non-devotees, it's essential. Of course, it's essential anyway, but especially for someone who is doing that, it's essential that you have a strong morning program. And this is best done by coming before the deity of Krishna, Radha, by hearing about the deity, by chanting the deity's name, by singing various songs of his glorification, so that our mind is filled with Krishna, so that when we have to go to the workplace, we can have thoughts of Krishna within our mind that will purify us of these activities, that will create within us the capability of remembering him. Yes, warm water helps, but I don't think it's going to help in this case, but I'll do it anyway. Remembrance of Krishna means under all circumstances, under all conditions. I can remember godbrothers who were in great difficulty. So one godbrother I had, his name was Ganapati, and he would frequently get sick, and his regular daily service was to go on Sankirtan from early in the morning until the evening. And he would go out on the street every day, even on those days when he was sick. He was coughing, he was sneezing, he was, having all kinds of physical difficulty. But he went out every day. It didn't matter that it was winter time. It was cold. He was out on the street. I remember another devotee. He had injured his back, but he made arrangements for someone else to carry him to the temple room from Uncle Artik every morning. He would lie down in the back of the temple. So many different circumstances of devotees who were in some way encumbered with material body. That their material body was causing all kinds of difficulties. I remember another devotee who lost his ability to speak, but he'd be here in the morning, chanting on his beads, and his mouth would be moving, but no sound would come out of his mouth because his vocal cords were gone. To various other problems. But he was here every morning chanting anyway, even though you couldn't really hear him chant. Because this is the importance of Krishna consciousness, that we are always engaged in activities to remember. It doesn't matter what condition we're in. It doesn't matter what time or situation it is. Krishna can be remembered. And this is practice for at the time of death, when death comes. And death comes to everyone who takes birth in this material world. No one's going to avoid death. It will come in due course of time. So we have to learn how to remember Krishna at the time. We have all this time to learn how to do it so that when that fearful moment of death comes, and for some people it's a very fearful time, because they know they've been very impious at some time. Chanting and remembering Krishna in a humble state of mind, devoid of all sense of false prestige. Remember the prayers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By remembrance of Krishna, one becomes freed from all these anxieties that are present in the material world, because one transcends the material world. It's not that you go to the spiritual world, it's that the spiritual world manifests within you. That's why when devotees first saw Srila Prabhupada, they would see him. I remember some Bhagavatas saying, they were remembering when the first time they saw him, he was walking on the other side of the street, and they were looking at him. One of them looked at the other Godfather and said, "That man's glowing," because he could perceive the transcendental nature that was present in Prabhupada, even though Prabhupada wasn't speaking to him. He wasn't saying anything. He was just walking down the street. remembrance of Krishna is very closely tied to remembrance of the spiritual master. Because from the spiritual master we can get some indication just what or who is Krishna. After all, he's not some energy, he's a person. All activity is coming from the presence of a person. So if our activities are for the pleasure of the Supreme Person, this remembrance of Krishna, this Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada wanted that all of his followers become pure devotees. You may think that, oh, I can't become pure. I'm a rascal. If I become pure, I'll get puffed up and I'll fall down. But Prabhupada wanted that everyone who is, even those people that are coming in contact with one of his books, those persons that open the book and read, 2 words in the book. Prabhupada's desire is that those people, even those people, will become pure devotees and go back to Godhead. Because Krishna does not make distinctions. If someone even momentarily thinks of Krishna, Krishna just sees that person as a devotee. So we should treat everyone as Krishna desires them to be treated. To remember Krishna, not to find fault with what others are doing. Of course, it's easy to say that. To practice it, that's another question. Well, we should try to practice to be favorably inclined towards others. See them as some potential devotee of Krishna. After all, at the present time, we're not really devotees per se. We're aspiring to come to the devotional platform. We're interested in remembering Krishna. So is there any comments, questions?